Francis, can I ask what you put down?
I put down the B and C and F.
And it really shows the talent both of the DPs and of the colorist. And in the hands of a true professional, I can only pick the bad one.
And you guys don't have an understanding of how dangerous this stuff really is. So sure, show your iPhone, show everything. But understand, you're putting stuff out there in the field that's affecting every one of us in this room. So be careful.
The cameras broke down in two groups for me. There's like 4 on top and 4 in the bottom.
Okay, what do you got?
I get C first, F-A-E-H.
I found it very difficult to sort of pick, and I also liked F. And then from then on it was sort of C, H.
Number 1, B. It just popped out for me. I like the lighting and I like the way the camera handled the lighting of that picture.
And I think what I've learned from this is that, yeah, we're in an age where all the tools are there. I mean, it's so subjective and it's so minute. And there are a few that I didn't quite like B, D, and G. And I'd love to pinpoint exactly why. It's just, it didn't feel right.
There was not one that blew my socks off. But I thought, oh my God, this is really extraordinary. And oddly enough, there was not one that I thought that really is crappy. I mean, the big thing I was surprised was how much closer they were.
Moi j'ai pris 3 critères. Le premier c'était le rendu des hautes lumières. Le deuxième c'était le rendu du mouvement. Et le troisième c'était tout ce qui était aliasing. Voilà, donc suivant ces critères-là, il y en a une seule qui est les 3 critères remplis, c'est la F.
So Cameron, I think it was D. And if you were to run this again and you were to look at the shirts, there was a green shirt and a red shirt, and they just pop all over the place. I mean, they're just so unreal compared with all of the other cameras, all the other shots.
When we came into the 2 main actors at the front, would you actually connect with them when you're doing your edit or looking at the picture afterwards? Would you connect with those 2 actors from that particular shot? And I think you would with A, E, and H.
My favorite was E, I think in part because it was the darkest, or one of the darkest, and most artfully done. And yet when we went to the close-up of the 2, they did some very interesting things on the close-up.
H seemed to me to have like all the right pieces in terms of contrast, that it felt nice and open. The skin tones looked great. There were still dynamic blacks in there, so the picture had snap.
I think that one of the things, of course, in the grading suite is and the same with camera setup, same with all these things, it is personal choice. And you may think something looks fantastic and I may think it looks rubbish, but neither of us are right and neither of us are wrong. It is just personal opinion. And that's one of the big issues with all of this, is who is right? Who, trying to find that average, who is Mr. Average is really, really hard.
My name is Polly Morgan and I'm a cinematographer, and I was chosen to illustrate the Canon C300 due to my experience working with it on Mobius. What I did is I used the window as my base, and then I basically adjusted the exposure within the room to match that. There was a key coming in from camera right, and instead of keeping that up and then knocking it down in post later, I actually chose to create the drama with the lighting. And then I brought in a Kino Flow just to provide a key light with the gentleman as he walked towards the couch. And then as he comes to his final position, I actually brought in some negative fill and softened up the light for the close-ups.
For me, actually, the C300 was a pleasant surprise. I was able to work with it quite well with the base light. We were color correcting straight off the MXFs from the camera, and we were able to bring in a really nice soft look from Polly's lighting setup.
So my interpretation of the creative shot was basically to not necessarily show off the camera for its ability to record the widest dynamic range, but more how to just make the scene feel a little bit more like how I would have lit it and create mood and a bit more shape, rather than just doing it to show off what the camera could do.
Given the opportunity to have great lights, lenses, or cameras, I would absolutely choose lights, then lenses, and then cameras.
Lenses, camera, lighting. The camera is ultimately the imaging device. The lenses can be sharper, poorer quality, and still have a quality about them which can tell a certain story.
Do you want it to look old? Do you want it to look new? Do you want it to look sharp? Do you want it to look fuzzy? You know, you want it to look warm, cold. Lenses give you that.
The first question would be, what's the project?
Each camera has its own nuances. There's strengths that I'll get from one camera in one setting that will be weaknesses in another setting.
I mean, cameras are really important, but if you know your camera's faults, you can get around them.
For me as a colorist, when I see something that's lit well, no matter what camera it's shot on, you can typically get it there, whether you need to add a little sharpening, whether you just need to balance the image a little better. It all starts with lighting.
Lighting is the heart of filmmaking from the cinematographer's point of view.
A scene that's well lit can be shot with an inferior camera and still have a good result.
You have to have a good crew or else the equipment's going to be useless. You could have the best equipment on a job, and when you bring it to a set, if no one knows how to use it, they're just pointless tools.
The cinematographer is as good as the crew around him.
What do I need equipment for if I have great people, you know, they can help me out.
Good people can make bad equipment wonderful, but you can't say that great equipment can't make bad people of any use to anybody.
It is still more about, in this particular test, it's more about the DP than the actual sort of capabilities of the tool at hand.
C'est impressionnant après de voir les choses que le cinématographe a faire avec la lumière de Shootout. Et
all I know is I'm blown away by the amount of grading and professionalism that these guys managed to pull out for me to not be able to really tell. It just tells me that there's a lot for me to learn on how they actually do it.
This one was cool because I was just a regular viewer now. I didn't know, I didn't have any stigmas going into it.
What I'm noticing in a lot of those cameras is certain cameras you'll get a very, very high-con, very kind of digital look. Other ones, you get a bit more stretch in the skin tones.
I know sort of like what group the iPhone falls within, but I would be hard pressed to tell you which one it is.
Was it G?
Was it I?
D. It was D.
The other suggestion I have, just as it's a subjective test, but what I've done is really...
My name is Michael Negrin for the 7D, and I'm a director of photography. So with the 7D, I felt like I was trying to get to where I thought the room would look naturally. You know, so there was a door in the back that needed a little bounce light off the floor, so it would look like daylight skipping off the floor and bringing it up just a little bit. I didn't want to bring it up unnaturally, I just wanted to bring it up to what the human eye would see in a low light situation like that. And I think I added a couple of foot candles of fill light to the people. When I went into color timing for the 7D footage, I tried to get the black levels and the highlights generally in line with what I thought looked by what my eye would see. And then what I did was what I do in almost any color correction, which is try to focus my eye on the action and take away from distractions in the scene. So I know I did a few power windows to darken some side areas and some edges so that your eye would be more focused on the people and the action going on in the room. I think I did a little bit of a power window on the view out the window. I was trying to overexpose it as much as I could to the extent that it looked like what you get with film overexposure, where there's an organic look to the window being kind of hot, but you still see some detail. And in this case, I definitely didn't want to see too much detail because I felt like it looked fake, and I was trying to make it look as real, acceptably real to the human eye as possible.
My father always used to tell me that, you know, when you're making a film, every frame of the film should be a perfect picture.
A good photograph always tells a story.
A photograph is a story in a frozen moment in time.
Telling a story in photography is way harder than telling a story in motion pictures because you have that one frame to get everything across in.
It's that one moment that is precious and you can examine, and it may not reveal all of itself at that point.
It'll evoke a reaction, a feeling, an emotion. And that's ultimately what we try to do in motion pictures as well. We just do it 24 times a second.
The cinematographer's obligation is to direct the eye, and to direct the eye in the way that the story would want it to.
film's about juxtaposition, so it's like one comes after, comes after, comes after.
There's the picture, and there's the picture within the picture, and then the cut within the sequence. So it's a much more complex beast.
Person's face looks, there's the shot of the beautiful girl, he's in love. Person's face looks, same shot. It's that Kuleshov experiment the Russians did. The meaning comes from the juxtaposition of the two shots, or of the pan that takes you from this to that.
God knows I love photography, and I'm obsessed by it, and I look at photographs constantly. But the movie with the movie's like, is that living dream.
I had B, A, F, G, and H. That was my order. I just liked them. I liked the way they looked. Not too many crushed in the blacks, just had the color, had the sharpness, everything that I look for. And that's what I went with.
I picked B as the top one. I liked it. I also thought it, had that crisp look. It was the skin tones were really good, and I like crisper blacks.
I know a couple of people said B was their favorite. B was actually was actually second to last for me, and I have to admit I'm sensing it's a personal thing because I'm really over saturation and crushing the blacks.
Most of the work that I do is in sort of like cable TV docs, and it's always warm, rich skin tones. So when I see B, I was done with that one, and I didn't see anything better than that one.
C just seemed very smooth. The transitions of skin tones, tonality, and the transition between light to dark was just completely smooth for me. So I picked C as my first one.
E and F seem to be really flat and noisy for me, so I wouldn't want to shoot with E and F.
Ik vond vooral de skin tones van A en H op de twee in een two-shot vond ik echt te gek. Echt veel beter dan de andere camera's.
And several of the cameras had really nice skin tones, and several of the cameras had really crappy skin tones. The best and the worst thing about this test is how subjective it is. And it's very subjective, first from the part of the DP, and again to us. So it's really a great test in many ways.
I'm pretty impressed with this rig, Casey. This is better than we had on set when I shot Goldilocks. My name is Mike Corbel. I'm a DP director. I think I was chosen because I'd had a little bit of success making some iPhone shorts. When I say iPhone shorts, I mean shorts that were completely shot, edited, and distributed through the iPhone. There's some times where you're like, I have a story that I want to tell, I want to shoot it, and you take the camera that's in your pocket and you go make a movie. When I first walked on set, everywhere you looked was a DP that had shot something that I'd already seen. And it was a little overwhelming. Had a powwow with the gaffer and the key, and just basically explained to them that as bright as it is outside that window, I need to be within 4 stops inside, which meant we had to really boost some light up. So in color timing, I brought up the blacks as much as I could, trying to obviously minimize as much of the noise as possible. I also went in and at a couple key points just sharpened ever so slightly because of the depth of field and just trying to make it hold up next to the big boys. I also went in and I desatted certain areas and boost saturation in others. But really what I did was I took all of the dynamic range that I had and I just maximized it, worked very closely with the colorists, and I think you'll be pretty surprised when you see what the iPhone can do if you see the raw image compared to what we're able to do in color timing.
Camera D, Apple iPhone 4S. Sony F3. Sony FS100. Panasonic GH2.
I mean, my choices fluctuated between the best ones with F and A.
Yeah, the Epic.
Yeah.
That cleaned up the best.
The window seemed the best on the Epic.
Now you can't lie now.
No, I put G down.
Okay. You put the 7D?
No, is that the 7D?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
You can stick with it.
The first camera that I made that I thought made a difference to me was a Sony. When I saw it, bang, I saw the picture. And then all the Sonys seemed to do well.
The GH2 really surprised me. I haven't really shot with it, but had I looked closer, I might have seen some of those aliasing and moire issues. But overall, the feeling of it was pretty high on my list.
The Canon C300, and it was something about the feel of it.
The F3, I thought it was a really lovely image.
My top three were the Alexa, the Epic, and the Panasonic. I'm most impressed by the Panasonic and what you can get out of that image.
Nee, maar dat die kleuren heel vreemd waren. Daarom viel die af van mijn lijstje.
Ja.
Ik had de F3 op 1, geloof ik. Alexa op 2. Wat was C?
Ja.
Oh ja, de Epic. Ja, dat viel me reuze mee, zeg. Ik ben niet zo'n Red fan.
The GH2, and it's only 50% more dollars than an iPhone. If there's a surprise among the cameras, how well it held up in terms of resolution and capability.
The Alexa, I mean, it's just solid. You know, the whole way through. F65, same situation.
I had the GH2 as my third pick, and I can see a lot of people around me have picked it as well. It's just it's something about it's like nice and saturated, but still holds up quite well, and I just can't believe that I rated it so highly.
On a l'impression que finalement l'iPhone permettrait de faire un long métrage.
My top three were Alexa, Red, and F65.
My name's Mick Jones, and I was approved by Sony to be one of the FS100 operators for the Shootout.
I'm Dan Lenny. I'm a cinematographer and educator. Bruce had lit this huge translight with like F22 coming in the window and dark shadows and dark skin tones with bright colours.
We knew with this camera that we were going to have to put in a picture profile that could see into the shadows a little, give us some shadow detail, but we had to go a little further because we were going to protect the highlights as well, so we could see what was going on outside that window with the translight.
Well, the profile was a G-Log. We dropped some of the saturation out of it because we felt it was a little bit rich. To just maximise the 8 bits that camera gives you. So there was a girl stood in a black dress who had a cell phone, and she was pretty underlit actually in the scene. So we threw a 400-watt joker bug into a big silk, bounced that back into the room, and had the grips cut it back so it just covered that half of the room.
In the grade, we really wanted to retain some of the highlight detail that was outside the window. We put a power window on the actual window to keep the highlight detail out there and keep it sort of at a pleasant level that we wanted.
We did a bit of work on the lamp, which had very fine spokes, and we wanted to retain some of the information there, so we put a little mask and a window around that.
One of them was on the red shirt with the guy by the window. It was just a little too saturated for us. My favourite films of all time.
I didn't even ask you that.
Desperate to
Fine, say it.
I think the first film that really inspired me and got me interested and intrigued by cinema was Dr. Zhivago.
A Man with a Camera is why I started, being a cinematographer.
I liked Citizen Kane.
Chinatown.
I Am Cuba.
Apocalypse Now.
Citizen Kane, Blade Runner.
Blade Runner is an incredible, bold exercise in just absolutely blasting out from what anybody done before.
I liked a Russian film called The Cranes Are Flying.
Lawrence of Arabia.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it is entertainment at its purest.
Breathless.
Breathless, the French New Wave. Rossellini, Bicycle Thief.
Nights of Cabiria. Federico Fellini.
Greg Toland was a great influence on me with Grapes of Wrath.
Some of my favorite films would be Usual Suspects. I love 2001 Space Odyssey. Of course, The Godfather.
Original Godfather.
The Godfather?
The Godfather broke the mold. No films had ever looked like that. No major studio films had ever looked like that up to that point.
I have to tell you a secret.
I was never a film fan. I grew up, I rarely went to the movies except on Saturday mornings. My mom gave me a quarter and a nickel on the bus to get downtown to the theater, a nickel for the ticket, a nickel for candy, another nickel to get home, that's 20 cents. And the other 5 cents was what my mom called mad money. If I got in trouble, I could use it in the telephone because calls were a nickel in those days. That's the limit of my movie going, all the way through school. And I never became a buff, a film buff.
I was actually able to pretty easily pick out the iPhone and the 7D. One thing I gave the 7D away was in the back of the window there was moire patterns.
I was watching in the corner the lady and the man talking. The lady disappeared a little bit. Her face, you couldn't see the detail of her face, and also you couldn't see the plant's detail right in the corner of that.
Le codec du 7D, du 5D, c'est un truc tellement cuit, il faut être le plus près possible de l'image finale pour...
I noticed motion artifacts on the processed iPhone footage.
Oh yeah,
big time. You know?
Yeah. That was a call coming in.
This is what the producer who is not knowledgeable doesn't understand. And they say, that stuff was shot on an iPhone, and I've heard it in this room, and I think it's a terrible statement to be made. That iPhone looks pretty good. Well, no, it doesn't look pretty good. It looks terrible, and it took a ton of help to make it work.
So we're all set with the Chimera clock.
We'll see it from here. We'll see her now.
Slate drive.
Okay, so. My name is Nancy Schreiber, and I'm a director of photography. I was thrilled to be able to be the one to use the F3 on the test this year. There were a few things I wanted to do without changing the whole nature of Bruce's concept. I did soften the light on the woman's hair in the foreground, the blonde, so I added some diffusion. I also added some neg fill because the diffusion spread out and wrapped around the guy a little too much, so I added a flag. In the background on the camera right side there was a very dark wood cabinet, and I wanted to bring that up a little. Even though I know the F3 could handle some of the darks better than some of the other cameras, you know, some bounce just to get a little reflection on the wood. And I also did add a light to separate the woman that was standing in front. The only other thing I did was, and you couldn't really see it because I backed off, was a little bit of light on the far left of the frame, the wooden screen at the very bottom. I added a skip bounce. My plan in the color correction room was to power window the window. Not so much that I could actually see so much detail that you would see it was fake, but enough so that I could show that the F3 did hold the highlights and have detail in the sky and in the building. I didn't really do a lot.
Every time you fail, it hurts. You doubt your self-esteem. You get down, you get low. Failure is an awful thing to go through. It just makes you unhappy.
I would console myself when I'd fucked up. Looking at the screen and it was either too dark or too light or this, that, and the other. And it's probably, that is the worst experience as a cinematographer, that humiliation, that public humiliation. You've set this up, it's your fault.
We try for an image and we want it to be a certain way, and it ends up not being quite the way we want it to be. And so that's, in a sense, a failure, and we learn from it.
You learn far more from failure than you do success.
That pain must become your tool by which you will improve your vision and your technique.
The entire process of learning anything is a cycle of failing and then saying, okay, now what do I do to make this better? And then you try it again and you keep building on your failures.
A human being without mistakes is not a human being. Perfection and greatness are two almost opposite terms. If you are doing something perfectly, you're taking no risk.
It really is one of the most valuable things you can possibly do. Screw up.
I just reviewed a film with a fellow that looked great, but didn't really work of a piece. And we talked about how she, as a cinematographer, should have suggested some transitional devices, a person in a car driving to a place and so on. And so that failure to not think with the director that transitional devices were needed to get a person from one place to another, to create a bigger world, that failure is a failure she'll never forget.
Unless you're risking a mistake, you're just repeating yourself. You're not adding anything to the universe, and you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Well, it seems like a lot of times people are picking cameras based on the post process. And they're calling you up and say, hey, you want to shoot this? We're using this camera. Rather than asking the cameraman what camera he wants to use, they're saying, this is what we're doing.
It seems like, it'd be a smart thing to sort of match the DP with the camera for the job, because it does seem like there's a little special expertise that somebody gets when they work with a specific camera. You do have to carry it through with, post-production, how it's going to be used and all that, but in terms of the look, this kind of opened my eyes about that a little bit.
It has to be collaborative, not necessarily, here's the job, what camera package should we use? It's incumbent upon us to keep, as a producer, to keep that a two-way street, so.
The F-65 was a little bit different. We had a manufacturer approve some technicians that came out and set up the camera for us. They felt that my existing very extreme ratios were easily capturable on their cameras, so they made no changes in the lighting for the test. They wanted to control their workflow very carefully, so the data that we got from the F-65 was taken to Sony CalWorks, and they did all the image processing there. They controlled their final results, so they gave us a 4K image in 16-bit TIFF files. What we did notice was that the highlights were slightly pink, which we tried to get rid of in our very final step. And we took it through the base light and did the scaling and then output it into the test.
Creativity's I think it's creativity's ability to let yourself think freely.
Creativity is simply the expression of your emotions in an action or, making something.
Creativity is just thinking differently.
Opening up.
Problem solving.
Telling the story in a way that's never been told before.
Taking risks.
I like to let chance happen.
There's so many good things I could say about it.
I think the gift is the obsession and the love of doing it.
You should be excited about it.
You've got to have been touched in your heart so deeply by visuals that it compels you to try to do the same thing.
If I could tell you everything that I know, if that was possible for me to download into your head everything that I know, and then you go off and shoot something, you're going to go and shoot it differently because you're you. And I'm going to do it differently because I'm me. That's the great thing about that.
Creativity is about applying your vision and your interpretation of the script.
I can sometimes pre-vision. I see a scene in my head. Maybe a month, 2-3 months before we get to shoot it, but I actually have got a precognition of how that's going to happen. I enjoy that. It's like a powerful feeling.
I think people are too quick still to just be kind of like, it doesn't matter what you use as long as you can do it well. In the mentality of this is a camera shootout and we're looking at A-B comparisons, there's definitely still a hierarchy here, I think.
A great DP makes all the difference.
Your choice of post house is almost as important as your choice of camera.
And I think you guys have done a magnificent job showing the people out there and all the people that are going to view this how incredible these tools actually are for filmmakers at a price point from $200 to $100,000.
Creativity is about meeting a challenge and finding a way to get around it.
The thing I was most impressed with was that some guys with
or gals with something to prove did better lighting than the established cinematographers with a good camera.
If you have not the right tools, you try and get as close to your ideal image, but you may not get there if they're not right.
This was an education not only about the cameras, but about ourselves and about our perception.
You'll notice when they test wine, they never do blind tastings because they're terrified.
Well, I think the tests really show you pay for what you get. The more money you spend, as a general rule, the images got better.
I think at the end of the day, you can go out, and if you've got a good story, then people are going to watch your film and they're going to accept it no matter what it's shot on.
If you actually walked away here saying that's the camera I picked, I think you missed the point. You should walk away and say, these are the cameras I can choose from.
I mean, specs really are not everything at this point. And it really is just going to be you with the camera.
We should stop worrying about the hardware and start making stories.
This is proven today, have confidence in the technology, go out and make a film, write a good narrative.
We can argue over, certainly details here, but in the end, I think it's in the hands of the people who are using the gear at this point.
Every single shoot, I learn something on.
I'm still learning. I still just scratch the surface of what might be possible in my own career, in my own life.
There are so many people who want to be a director or a filmmaker or a DP today, and ultimately it comes down to your passion, your work ethic, and specifically what it is that you bring that's unique to the table.
Don't go in to being in the film business because you want to be a cog in the wheel and earn a living that way.
And do it for yourself. It's mainly what moves you, and that's what I do. I create images because I'm moved by the images.
You've got something to say, something that you believe in, and that's the important thing.
You have to work really, really hard at it. I think in the Outliers, it's that you've got to spend 10,000 hours polishing your craft, and then you become a genius.
It's just hard work and determination, and just to shoot as much as you possibly can and make lots and lots of mistakes.
Early in my career, I worked with and was buddies with Janusz Kaminski, and he was still a student at Columbia. And Janusz became like the DP, the student DP that everyone used at Columbia. And you would think that the artistic thing to do would be to choose carefully the scripts and the directors you want to work with. That was not his method.
Well, I've shared whatever was offered to me. And money, of course, there was no money, so I was doing it frequently, spending my own little money because you had to buy extra film to contribute to the little student film.
Any student film, 7 days a week, whatever the project was.
And every weekend I would go to a film cage at Columbia College and take the equipment and shoot for other students.
He was always, figuring out something he could get, some bit of experience he could get from any project he shot.
Because it's just, you're getting the images and you're learning how to be among other people with the camera, how to behave, what's your placement, that kind of stuff.
So by the time Janusz was at Columbia College as a film student, he had already put himself through, more travails than, most of our students have ever had in their entire lives.
So by the time I finished school, I had about 30 short movies that I shot, half an hour, 20 minutes, and I was able to make a little demo reel, and based on the demo reel, I got my first feature film here in Los Angeles.
As a student, if you're not going out there and working on everything you possibly can, you're in the wrong field.